to talk about the Residency Grant Fund that has been launched, and we are in the process of welcoming applications in. I'm ably assisted by my team, and we will crack on through this. So the agenda is to give you a quick overview of what our programme's about for those who don't know us and haven't been here before, and we'll then go into the details of the grant fund, and after the presentations open up the floor for questions from yourselves. If there's any generic questions or those that you wish to be consumed by the public audience, then please post them in the chat, and we'll curate those questions after the presentation. If there's anything specific confidential about your project or about your business, then please send it on an email to MITIH2526@salford.gov.uk, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can on that. We will also publish an FAQ after the call and put that on our website so that all the questions raised are there covered for everybody to consume. So what is MITIH? For those of you who know, we're based here at Media City, but we're serving Greater Manchester. The objective is to drive the innovation community. Part of the government's Innovation Accelerator pilot programme, we are one of 10 funded projects that were started in the spring of 2023. So the last 2 years has been a fun time of bringing people together, driving collaboration, driving innovation, and really driving it all from the basis of an industry that has suffered through COVID, come together afterwards, and is dealing with the challenges in various of our sectors, but particularly in the creative industries. What are we about? Primarily, it's about innovation. Everything we're doing that's funded by Innovate UK has to have a strong innovation element to it. As a community, we're trying to drive collaboration, bringing people together, working together, both physically and remotely, and making sure that we're sharing experiences across subsectors, getting the creatives to talk to the technologists, getting people working in TV to work with those in games, and all across the board, trying to drive a greater cohesion across the creative industries and the serving of other sectors across GM where immersive technologies are relevant. And most importantly, from the government's point of view, they're investing their money to drive private sector R&D investment. So this element of co-investment that's coming alongside the government money is critical to demonstrating success and good use of that money to drive value and drive the objectives as to why this programme is being funded in the first place. Obviously, the government has announced more funding for the future, and the case studies that we can drive in our use of the money are really important as to how we can then leverage that future funding for similar programs in the future. The word immersive was chosen back in the summer of 22. We've had lots of debates about what that covers, but primarily for us, it covers 3 main areas that are important in our programme. Immersive experiences in all their forms, from VR headsets to stadium concerts. Virtual production, i.e. the creation of content with green screen, LED screen, or no screen at all, particularly with the advent of AI tools coming into the frame as well. And games and esports being the third area. So the vast majority of what we're doing stems from those 3 thematic areas. Obviously, all of those are underpinned by technologies. So we fit in the world of the innovation programs led around advanced computing. So whether it's Unreal engines or Unity engines or other AI tools, all the tools that knit together the workflows in various industries, that is at the heart of what we're doing and how we're trying to drive the adoption of those technologies in new use cases. What we've been doing over the last couple of years has come under various guises. As a programme that's innovating itself, we've been experimenting with a number of formats. Obviously, bringing people together to co-work is at the heart of bringing that community together, doing jams, getting people to talk about their topics, get that debate and conversation happening in relaxed social environments that we've put on over the last year, covering topics like VR, AR, web AR versus app AR, mocap and virtual production developments have all been at the heart of bringing the community together under various events here. We've also run labs and hacks where we've brought experts and collaborators together to derive particular subjects over a day or 2 days of activating the community and working through topics together. Workshops and roundtables have also provided great forums for discussion, debate, and trying to shape projects and ideas, and how we can, as a programme, drive activation amongst the community to adopt technology, to experiment with new challenges and ideas, and really get some of the creative juices flowing. And of course, why we're here today, talking about the projects that can get supported through the funding that we have. With that, the ability to get companies.
The most disgusting thing that's happened to you while working in a hospital. When I was in it.
Getting those projects funded in a way that we collectively can help join up the teams and get people to formulate good project propositions, and then apply the funding that we have to get those projects delivered within our programme. We've also run a couple of accelerators. One notably is the Future Everything collaboration that we did, looking at artists and how they could bring forward their work, which was done through the course of last year. A key part of what we're doing now in this year is bringing host to life, the spaces that we have here, the technology that we have here, and making sure that that is available. So a key thing that we're going to be looking at in the projects that come forward and supporting individuals is looking at how they can access the technology that we have here. So for those of you who know us, you'll know that we had the Dream Lab last year. In there, we had a bunch of tech that we acquired to give SMEs access to technologies that they couldn't otherwise get hold of or buy themselves. And so it gives people the chance to access that. So the mocap equipment that we have with the OptiTrack sensors, and the software that sits there with the green screen, LED screen, the cameras that we have, and the Vive tracking provides for a platform for people to start experimenting with VP and mocap technologies. We have friends elsewhere around the city who have more commercial spaces, but what we have here gives people that first chance to play and experiment while they're working out what their projects look like and how they may want to invest and use those technologies elsewhere. In the space of immersive, we've got the Immersive Lab. In there is an expensive stereoscopic projector, which allows people to mimic what is available through VR, but in a collaborative, shared experience, as well as having in there the VR headsets with most lately the Quest 2s, the Quest 3s, and the Apple Vision Pro headsets. Something new that's coming in, hopefully it'll be in by the end of August, is an Igloo. Those of you who know, the colleges have been putting these in through the Local Skills Improvement Fund programme. They obviously sit ring-fenced beside the college walls. The Igloo team approached us a number of months ago and asked if we would be interested in collaborating. Of course, the answer was yes. So we are installing a 6-metre diameter cylinder, which will provide 360-degree projection onto a surface which is roughly 2 metres high, with 5.1 spatial audio within that space. So it will give a new platform for those particularly interested in the immersive experience, and those working in galleries, museums, and entertainment may find that helpful for developing their ideas. Included in the investment is a spatial audio lab. People will have seen some of the good work that was done by people like Noel working with Bernie, the development of that technology, and importantly, the support of spatial audio on platforms like YouTube mean that is more and more an important aspect of all the content creation that's happening, and bringing people to use that equipment and develop further their practice in that space is a really important part of development. So we are, over the course of the next month, going to be installing a space that will allow people to create their spatial audio content alongside their video content. All of that, of course, is supported by some aspects of compute and software. We've had good use cases of people coming in and using the computers we have for various things, from training their AI models to developing their content for Fortnite applications. So anybody who hasn't seen it, please come and visit. Please come and see what we have here. It's a really important part of this residency program, and making sure that people are using the facilities and also collaborating with the experts that we have here across a number of companies. People-wise, you'll be familiar with the partners of the program. The MITIH team itself is a partnership between the team that we've employed directly through the landing company, a subsidiary of the Salford City Council. We've got the team from the University of Salford who's providing labs and business assists and tech assists. And of course, we've got the wider community that has been a key part of the programme, facilitating the introductions to people throughout Greater Manchester and beyond. And through that, of course, we have connections into the BBC R&D team, into Doc 10, into the colleges, and a variety of other organisations and institutions, both here at Media City and across the country. We have more information on various channels. The Linktree tag is MITIH. So if you go onto Linktree, MITIH, you'll find our series of communication channels to find further information about the programme. Moving swiftly on to the Residency Grant Fund. Those of you who saw last year's programme, we had 3 rounds last year. We developed the theme of the residency through the 2nd and 3rd rounds. And the videos that we'll post soon on our LinkedIn post will give you a flavour of the companies that came through and the value that they experienced by being in the former residency. So we are carrying on that theme this year, encouraging that co-working and collaboration within the confines of this space, giving people a place to come and work together and access facilities. So who's it for? It is a GM fund. It's for Greater Manchester companies to come and apply for it, to develop their new innovation in products, service, workflows and tools. It's primarily focused around creative technologies and the use of those technologies to enhance creative processes, but that can be across multiple sectors. We're particularly keen to see the integration of new technologies which may be developed elsewhere in the world, but also the development of new technologies that are being created within GM and the companies herewith. Creation of new forms of media and how that is addressing an audience is also an important part of how things have progressed, sometimes on big commercial platforms, sometimes on new platforms. But in all of that, it's about driving innovation, something new, novel, that ultimately is driving economic growth within the creative sector and the wider economy. We're particularly keen this year to see that route to market and making sure that the developments are clearly aligned to somebody's business plan and how they will then take that on into commercialization. The timing, we've got the open call at the moment. We've done it through a 2-stage process to make sure people aren't applying and putting time into an application and then find that they're not relevant to it. So the EI process gives a process of sifting and making sure that those companies interested do qualify and that they meet the first minimum criteria around are they viable and meet Innovate UK rules. Assuming you do meet that, we will send you the application form to fill out. The application form is based on previous application forms that we've used, so it's tried and tested 3 times and it's been improved at each turn. It's driving content around making sure we're clear what is the innovation, and that for us is one of the most important aspects of the application form. Is it absolutely clear what you're trying to achieve in the innovation and how the project has been formed to show the results of that through a project that is achievable within the timescales with a clear set of costs that can be started and delivered within the time frame from October through to the end of January. So it's a short window to actually deliver the project. And with that in mind, we've got a very short process to process your applications. From the deadline of the 4th of September, we will work through the course of the following week, make our decisions and notify the successful applicants such that we can get to contract by the end of September. We have a standard form grant funding agreement that, assuming you pass due diligence checks and the finance checks and that we've got the costs properly mapped out, that grant funding agreement will need to be signed prior to starting the work. But that is, again, tried and tested, and it's a non-negotiable contract. It's based on Innovate UK terms and conditions. And from experience, if the projects are well formed in the applications, we should be able to get to the end of September with contracts in place, assuming that you've met some of the tests that we'll go through now, particularly around having the team and money in place to start the projects. All these words are on our webpage. I won't read every single word on it. I will pick out some of the key highlights on here. But primarily, this slide is about the lead organisation, the applicant themselves. You need to be a GM company. That doesn't mean you have to be registered here, but you have to have evidence of a physical presence over the last 6 months to demonstrate that you are part of this community and not just flying into Manchester to grab the money and disappear again. The requests for support in this round is up to £25,000, which is £20,000 in cash and up to £5,000 of in-kind support through use of the labs and spaces that we have here and some of the team that we have here. You obviously, as I said before, have to have an innovation project. It has to be collaborative. It has to be strategically aligned with MITIH, and it has to generate the required co-investment in the outputs. You have to also commit to being a resident here for part of your time, and we'll come on to what that means in a minute. From a project window, we don't have any flexibility on our programme. You equally don't have any flexibility. So your period of delivery is October through to January, which gives us time to wrap up all the admin, pay all the bills, and deal with all the stuff that needs to be done before the programme closes. This round closes at the end of March. If you've received funding before from the public purse, you will hopefully be aware of the concept of minimal financial assistance. That limits how much money you can receive from any public source. It's £315,000 over a 3-year period. It's a rolling 3-year period. You have to sign a declaration that you haven't received that money. And assuming that you are within that limit and this money doesn't take you over that, then you will be eligible. Importantly, you can't be in financial difficulty. You can't use this as a way to prop up your business. So having a healthy history and a healthy story as to how you are going to fund the programme is important, as well as how you intend to carry on and commercialise this, which will be picked up in the application itself. Importantly, for those who haven't had an Innovate UK grant before, all of this is paid in arrears. So you don't get money up front. You have to have the funds to be able to meet your commitments within the project, pay any expenses, and then claim that back in arrears. And the time it takes to make that claim and receive the money back means you need the cash flow up front to cover a substantial period of the time of your project. And that is obviously a key aspect of this and assessing whether or not that is feasible. So we'll be looking for evidence in clear statements in your application. Strategic alignment, we've mentioned this a few times. So the MITIH themes that you saw at the start around immersive are really important. The extent to which you want to use our lab capabilities is equally important to make sure that you are fitting into the community and building on the strengths that we have. Those of you who have been close to our work, you'll be aware that we have strong interests around the topics of animation, of virtual production and mass audience experiences. So those areas are also particularly interesting and important to us in terms of the community that we have and are building. As I mentioned before, the project must be innovative and collaborative. You know, this is not a source of funding for you to go and work on your own behind closed doors. The whole point of this whole programme is to get collaboration and co-investment happening across the sector, getting people to work together. So please make sure that you are seeking other people to work with you on your project and demonstrate that true commitment to collaboration through your projects. We're very keen to make sure that these projects are demonstrating distinctive capability within the hub and within our GM community. When it comes to knowing what Manchester stands for and what we're good at, it's really important that we have that cohort of projects and companies that demonstrate, you know, who we are and what we stand for here, and that we're not just a ubiquitous innovation hub doing things that everybody around the country is also doing. So that will be an important part of how we gather and choose the portfolio of funded projects. Of course, as I mentioned before, driving commercial impact and outcomes is a key element of showing that the money is going to good use and there's good value for money in what's being achieved here, not only in the demonstration of the co-investment during the course of the project, but leading on to commercialisation and outcomes that are so important to the economic growth of the city. And as stated in previous rounds and now, we're taking a portfolio approach. So the highest score does not necessarily win in this competition. It's making sure that we've got that good collection of projects which can work together, form a good cohort, and drive that competence and capability that we're trying to achieve within the hub. When it comes to the cash support, if you're not familiar with Innovate UK rules, please do read all the guidance that's available. They are very stringent. There are no exceptions. There are no rule changes allowed. When it comes to the cash, we have to focus on what's described as eligible costs. So those things as determined in the guidance around what you can and cannot claim. So things like marketing, for instance, are not an eligible cost. There are clear definitions around all of that. If you have any questions, then please do fire them through. There are plenty of people out there providing this type of support. But please don't take guesses as to the interpretation. If you've got any doubt as to what something means, then please make sure you're able to work through that, because when it comes to that rapid timescale of assessing applications and getting to contract, there won't be room for changes and negotiations and getting things sorted. We will pick those projects that have it clearly articulated. So please use the time to ask questions up front. All your costs must be evidenced. So when you make your claims in the future, the evidence of invoices and cash leaving your business are an important part of Innovate UK's whole process. So getting that clarity up front in your application, knowing full well that you'll be able to evidence that cash leaving your business, is a critical element of what you include in your cash flow. Typically, capital costs are difficult. For the time that you use a capital item, you can only claim the usage over that period of time based on the capital depreciation. So beware of any challenges around trying to claim any capital. We are not a capital grant programme, and claiming capital usage can be a challenge, particularly finding the evidence of your invoice and your depreciation over a period of time for that use of equipment. Again, if you've got any questions, please get in touch. You can't claim retrospective costs. So any work that you've done prior to the start of the project, prior to the 1st of October, will not count in your claim. So please don't try and include any of that in your application or in your future claims. And when it comes to the elements of state aid, we've got a co-investment requirement, which we'll talk about in a second. But importantly, also, we need to make sure that we are applying the other rules around how we will fund at the scale of a business. So most importantly, the maximum grant of eligible costs will be 70% for micro and small companies, 60% for medium-sized companies, and 50% for larger companies. As I said before, this is only about the cash that you pay through the applicant company. So it has to be evidenced through the lead applicant. And to make the statement once more time, no cash up front. All claims are in arrears on defrayed costs, i.e. paid for work done during the term of the project. And that will be a claims process every 2 months. But given the time it takes to process the claim and process your invoices, in reality, that cash will not come in till at least the 3rd, if not the 4th month, depending on how clear your claims are and how much work is needed to sign off your claim. The topic of co-investment I mentioned earlier is the key KPI that the government cares about in terms of seeing value for money in their investment in these programs. We expect to see a minimum of 1-to-1 committed and evidenced in your application to show that that will be delivered during the timescale of your project, i.e. during that 4-month window, and that it can be physically evidenced as a co-investment coming from yourselves as the applicant and your people working on your program. Those scoring 2-to-1 or more will get a higher rating in our assessment, because that is ultimately the target that the government is trying to achieve. And we are in a world where other sectors like advanced manufacturing and health are achieving multiples far greater than that. So we at least need to make sure that we are holding our ground and making sure that we can demonstrate a clear path to achieving 2-to-1, ideally during the time of the project, but if not, within a very short period of that, and not some future promise that may or may not be able to be evidenced. When it comes to the evidence of that, we will need to have physical documentation of time invested by people and cash invested in people. So please bear that in mind. Woolly statements about co-investment will be spotted, and we are really going to be looking both in the application stage to choose those companies that can demonstrate a clear commitment to that delivery of co-investment during the time of the project. When it comes to collaboration, there is only one applicant and only one party can receive the grant. Other collaborators can be suppliers and subcontractors. In the terms of Innovate UK, those people will either be coming under your subcontractor category, or if you're buying materials or using capital equipment from people, it may come under materials or capital usage. There is also the other category, which allows for elements of rental, where, for instance, you're renting some aspect of the equipment from another party. Again, if you've got any questions around that, anybody who deals with Innovate UK, if you've got Innovate UK Edge colleagues or other contacts, can easily answer those kind of questions. Importantly, the work is here for the Manchester programme. The expectation is that the majority of the work will be done in Manchester. It is not to be farmed out to other parts of the country or the other parts of the world. So we are applying a maximum of 30% of subcontracted activity outside of GM as a starting point. In-kind contributions and borrowing of technology is important to count as co-investment, but it often is difficult to count as eligible costs unless you're directly paying for it. And as I said before, any collaboration and co-investment needs to be evidence to be material, both in the application stage and the reporting stage afterwards. In the application itself, as I mentioned before, key focus is on being clear about what is the challenge and what is the solution that you're proposing to develop as part of your project, or what is the research and development that you are proposing. Clarity around that is key to knowing that this is compliant with Innovate UK, that is achieving the goals of the programme, and that it aligns with what we are trying to achieve with the funding that we have available. The commercial value proposition and the market need for what you're developing is a key element of knowing that this is a development that is important and has a route to market that will ultimately lead to the commercial outcomes and commercialisation. So again, please make sure throughout your application you're being as clear and specific to get that message across to the assessors. Within the application, we're asking about your project, be clear about the scope, the outputs, the deliverables, demonstrate that you've got a plan that is achievable with the resources available and the costs well mapped and known at this stage. Be clear where there are knowns and unknowns, any potential issues. You know, this is innovation, this is R&D, we don't expect you to have all the answers, but clarity and clarity around the message and knowing where those unknowns are is a really important element of making sure that when we assess your application, we know that you're heading in the direction of solving those problems and that we're not funding something which may not have a conclusion. Collaboration, I've stressed, it is such an important part of our programme. So that evidence of an agreement in place, particularly where there is any IP involved, being clear as to where that lands. We've seen projects in the past where great ideas have been brought forward, but the team hasn't worked out how actually that product is going to be owned and developed and commercialised. And in that context, those projects often fall down. I mustn't emphasise too much that particular issue. It has been, in the context of the collaboration and co-investment, one of those challenges about clarity of who the team is and how you're going to deliver it. And with that, the investment in co-investment, you know, what does anybody get back in return for the time and effort that they're putting in? And last but not least, the delivery of impact, you know, being clear about where that's going to drive you and as a business, you know, when are you getting to market? Is there a clear route that what you're developing is either part of a service that you're already providing or part of a product suite that will actually add to your ability to win more work and commercialise what you're delivering? There is a list here of things that we will not fund. Again, it's written on our website. If you read this and there's any doubt as to whether or not we'll fund it, please don't waste your time filling out the application without asking the question. We've been through a number of scenarios here, so these words are tried and tested. But of course, there are variations on a theme. So please come back to us if you've got any questions about to what extent you think you may or may not qualify for this process. The EOI itself gives us a first step in that process. But as you start developing your application, there may be further questions that come out as well. The application process, hopefully you've seen the website, you'll certainly have seen the post to be on this page today. Please read the guidance. I can't stress enough the need to read all the items within there. There are elements within that guidance that are quite subtle. If in doubt, Innovate UK rules are the default application of every single rule. So we will clarify any questions that you have. Please complete the EOI form. If you think that you are wanting to proceed, we will get back to you very quickly with an answer or any questions if there's any doubt as to whether you qualify or not. And if you do qualify, we will send you the application form to complete. When you complete that application, please send it back with the MFA declaration to our MITIH 2526 email address at salford.gov.uk. Deadline is noon on 4th of September. One more slide to share with you is about our residency. So the aim of the residency program is to bring people together to work together, be together, and feed off ideas together. We are expecting a minimum presence from the lead applicant, and that means a lead person within the team or the lead on the project within it, and those two people may be different people. We have, as a minimum, one desk allocated for each project. If you want more, need more, then we can work that through. We had a number of teams last time who came in various sizes and shapes, so we're very open to seeing how we can accommodate you here if you want to bring more people in to collaborate together. As mentioned before, a key element of it is access to our labs. The challenge there is working out how we can accommodate everybody if you all say you want to be in one space at the same time. But we look forward to dealing with those challenges when we see it in your applications. Please be specific about what you propose to access and how often and how much time you expect to be in there. Again, if you've got any questions, please get in touch with us. We have a variety of kit in there. We are, of course, very keen to welcome other people in who want to bring their kit in and augment what we have within our community for people to use. We also are acting as a program supporting businesses. So the whole aim of bringing people together is to help them develop not only their project, but also themselves as a business. We will run kick-off sessions at the start to deal with the grant process and the claims process. We will also be running sessions around exploitation in particular, and making sure that we're helping companies think about how they take their ideas and take them to market. We've also got, as part of the wider MITIH program, other business support programs, which I'm not going to go into detail here, but if there's anything in that world where you would like more support, then Rodolphe and the team are here to provide additional support as well. As part of the process, there'll be 2 monitoring meetings, and those are ones you'll have to attend to present your progress and present your claims. So that is a routine element of the grant claim process. We will also expect you to contribute to our community events. And by that, we mean something as simple as a lunch and learn type activity or a jam, where taking a topic that is relevant to you and your world that you can share with the rest of the world without betraying confidences and confidentiality helps to develop the community and the learning within our wider ecosystem. We will co-design those sessions with you. We will co-deliver those sessions with you. So you're not on your own. You're not expected to take it on yourselves. We've got a team to deal with that, and we've got lots of other interesting people and topics to drive that with you. But a key part of it is that commitment to that growth of the community and the knowledge sharing within it. And that can be in the form of a jam, part of one of our labs and hacks that we're organising. The last column here, again, it's putting more words on a page. I think I've gone across these elements before. The extent to which the residency here is important for you for reasons other than just what we have in host. Again, please highlight that to the extent to which you're keen to access other people within our MITIH community, whether that be in the university, the likes of Doc 10 or the BBC or others, or people around the rest of GM. A key benefit of what we've been doing over the last year has been facilitating the introductions to people around the city region who haven't previously known each other and may want access to knowledge and technology that other businesses have. So the key element of the residency is growing that support network and making sure that people are tapping into what's available across the Greater Manchester community. Okay, I'm going to stop there and open up the floor for questions. If you can put your question in the chat if you haven't done so already. No questions come in. Does anybody have a question they wish to raise? So, first question, could you clarify the collaborative section? Is it a ratio of the grant? So our co-investment is a calculation which takes you outside of the eligible costs. So let's be clear, the eligible costs are those costs that you'll be incurring in the project as part of your project delivery, where that money is being transacted through your business as an applicant. So you have to have spent that money and you need to be paying other people for their work. So that is what typically in all Innovate UK rules is described as the eligible cost. In the context that you as a business, let's say, only receive 50% of grant funding, if you're asking for your costs to be funded at 50%, then your 50% is co-investment immediately. So if you're asking for a 20% grant fund, but you're only getting 50% grant funding, then your half of that is immediately co-investment. So you have immediately achieved a one-to-one. The extent to which another business is prepared to do things for you at nil cost, i.e. not passing through your books, or doing it at a heavily discounted rate that you can evidence. So maybe somebody who would normally charge you £300 a day is only going to charge you £150 a day, or they're going to give you 10 days free, as well as you paying them 10 days, same calculation, then that can be evidence as co-investment from that company, which would be added on top of your contribution to your half of the eligible costs. And in that way, if you are collaborating with other people and they're investing in your project, we will see that element of collaboration in the co-investment that they're putting into your project. Moving on to the next question. Can I submit more than one application? Short answer is no. We are only accepting one application per applicant, but you can be part of somebody else's application. So if you're collaborating with somebody else, they can submit an application and you can be part of their application. Third question. Include capital expenditure, e.g. physical construction of infrastructure, for example, studios, workspace, hub, or that. Can the purchase of equipment be made from the co-investment? Can the purchase of equipment be made from the co-investment? If somebody else is buying equipment out of their capital funds, bear in mind we have no capital funds and we're not giving capital money. The only claim that you can make is if you have a capital item of your own. So let's deal with that one first. So if you have bought a piece of equipment, it is in your books, you can evidence the invoice for it and you can evidence the capital depreciation method that you're using in your accounts. So let's say you've got a 3-year depreciation period. Then the period of the project, if you're using that capital item 100% of the time for the 4 months, the calculation effectively works on the basis that you can claim for that 100% of uses for 4 months out of the 3 years of the depreciation of that capital asset, assuming you can demonstrate that you've purchased that asset, you can demonstrate that your capital depreciation method is over that 3-year period, and you can demonstrate that you're using it 100% of the time over that 4-month window. So that is, in that context, an eligible cost that you are claiming of an expense that you have incurred yourself. If a third party has bought an item, then you haven't incurred that expense. So there's 2 elements there. They could be renting that to you, in which case the rental of that at a fair market price could be another cost. Or if they're treating that as co-investment because they're giving it to you for free, then you can demonstrate in the same methods as the capital utilization, a fair proportion of the cost of that, or a nil value rental cost, a value of that as a co-investment, which then goes towards what you're counting towards your total co-investment, but it's not, in that context, money going through your books. The next question, Salaries are eligible costs under the category of labour. So if you look in the details of the rules on Innovate UK and UKRI's pages, it sets out clearly what counts as salaries. You have to be physically paying those people through a PAYE scheme. You have to demonstrate the components of their salary, national insurance and pension contributions and evidence through payslips. And you have to evidence that you've physically paid those people on your bank statement, that those cash payments to those employees have gone out. And you also need to evidence a timesheet that the proportion of those salaries that you are claiming on the project are backed up by a timesheet signed off by the individual and by their manager to demonstrate that that proportion of salary that's gone into the project is indeed claimable. If you're not running a PAYE scheme, there is an exception for micro companies that are not running PAYE schemes for directors of companies, but that is an exception. And there is a line on their guidance around that, around how much you can claim per hour per day for those people, but with the same principle that it's timesheeted. Sorry, just to clarify, salaries also come with the opportunity around an overhead. Again, it's written black and white on Innovate UK rules. Please don't try and devise an overhead proportion that exceeds 20%. Innovate UK require a large element of proof around any overhead greater than a 20% overhead claim. So if you're running studios and a big team with a big support behind you, and in your world of calculations, you have a different figure of an overhead that's more than 20%, then please get in touch quickly. The simple rule is Innovate UK requires a big burden, and we won't have time to go through that burden of proving anything other and above a 20% overhead. Are there any other questions? Has that been clear? Can I have some feedback from people? Are you all confused, or we haven't thrown any curveballs out there? Those of you familiar with Innovate UK should hopefully see a direct resemblance to all Innovate UK rules. Another question come in. Are new startups with no trading history eligible? There is a burden of proof around that in the DD that we have to do. The answer isn't no, but we'd have to be satisfied through the due diligence. So I would suggest you get in touch with us as soon as possible to show us what evidence you can provide to satisfy the DD. So you can email us after this with details of your company and where you are in that process of startup, assuming that you have at least management accounts and that you can evidence cash in the business. So if you could email some details after this, that'd be great. Thank you for the feedback from those who have responded. Any further questions? Yes, so could you post the website address in? So Rodolphe is going to repost the website link into the chat in case you haven't got it at your fingertips. We will be posting this recording onto the website so people can re-review this. If you've got any further questions, if you can fire them through, we'll create an FAQ as well. There's clearly some subtleties in the interpretation of things like co-investment and others. We don't expect you to get it right first time. If you've got any questions around how you're formulating your team and the co-investment, then please get in touch. And please also bear in mind, we are very aware that you are also in holiday periods, as are we. And so the sooner you get those questions in, preferably in the next 24 hours, the better, to the point that we can formulate the best and fastest response for both you and anybody else that needs the answers to those questions. If there's no further ado and no further questions, I think we'll focus on getting on with speaking to individually. If anybody wants to get in touch, then please do so. And I will make sure that we share the great videos we have of our previous Streamlab residents through our LinkedIn page over the coming weeks, so that you can see some of the good outcomes that we had from the previous cohorts. Those who aren't familiar, the YouTube page that we run can be accessed through the LinkedIn, the Linktree route. You will see examples of the companies that were previously funded. And those videos were shot before they'd finished their projects, so they talk about what they're doing. They don't actually show the outcome, and it's not a direct case study, but it'll give you a sense of who the companies were and what kind of projects they were pursuing at that time. We are tightening our focus. We have less money in total. We have £200,000 this time round. Previously, there was £1.1 million of secondary grant funding. So with the monies being requested, we expect to fund 10 times 20k of cash. Anybody who's asking for less than that, that says also okay. We will then have to cut the pot to try and get all that £200,000 out the door in that first round of the competition. So don't feel compelled to ask for £20,000 if you've got a good project and it needs less than that. That is also good for us. So you're not being scored on whether you're asking for the full amount or not. We'd rather see well-formed projects asking for less, delivering clear, tangible outcomes in the time that's available. And then we'll work out how we use the portfolio to allocate that full money to all the good projects that are there. If there's nothing else, I will wish you a good rest of your day, a good summer holiday to those who are heading off anywhere, and safe travels, and hopefully see some of you soon in person and through the rest of this call. Take care.